All right. I did it again. All right. So we're studying reading through the Gospel of Shree Ramakrishna by M. There's nothing to look at on my book, but we're on chapter 12 tonight of the festival at Panihati. Panihati. So it's Monday, June 18th, 1883. So that's exactly 100 years before I graduated high school. Sri Ramakrishna had been invited to the great religious festival at Panihati near Calcutta. This festival of the flattened rice was inaugurated by Raghunath Das, a disciple of Sri Chaitanya. It is said that Raghunath used to run away from home, secretly practice his devotions, and enjoy the bliss of spiritual ecstasy. One day, Nityananda said to him, "Thief, you run away from home and enjoy the love of God all alone. You hide it from us. I shall punish you today. You must arrange a religious festival and entertain the devotees with flattened rice." Since then, the festival has been annually celebrated at Panihati by the Vaishnavas. Thousands of the followers of Sri Chaitanya participate in it. Its chief feature is the singing of the names and glories of God and the dancing of the devotees in religious fervor. The center of the festivity is the temple of Radha Krishna, built on the bank of the Ganges. The master had been invited to the festival by Mani Sen, who was the custodian of the temple. Ram, M, Rakal, Bhavanath, and a few other disciples went with the master in a carriage. On his way to the Panihati, Sri Ramakrishna was in a light mood and joked with the youngsters. But as soon as the carriage reached the place of the festival, the master, to the utter amazement of the devotees, shot into the crowd. He joined the kirtan party of Navadvip Goswami, Mani Sen's guru, and danced, totally forgetting the world. Every now and then he stood still in samadhi, carefully supported by Navadvip Goswami for fear he might fall to the ground. Thousands of devotees were gathered together for the festival. Wherever one looked, there was a forest of human heads. The crowd seemed to become infected by the master's divine fervor and swayed to and fro, chanting the name of God until the very air seemed to reverberate with it. Drums, cymbals, and other instruments produced this melodious sound. The atmosphere became intense with spiritual fervor. The devotees felt that Gauranga himself was being manifested in the person of Sri Ramakrishna. Flowers were showered from all sides and on his feet and head. Shouting the name of Hari was heard even at a distance, like the rumbling of the ocean. Sri Ramakrishna entered by turn into all the moods of ecstasy. In deep samadhi, he stood still, his face radiating a divine glow. In that state of partial consciousness, he danced, sometimes gently, sometimes with the vigor of a lion. Again, regaining consciousness of the world, he sang, himself leading the chorus. "Behold, the two brothers have come who weep while chanting Hari's name, the brothers who dance in ecstasy and make the world dance in his name. Behold them, weeping themselves and making the whole world weep as well. The brothers who in return for blows offer to sinners Hari's love. Behold them, drunk with Hari's love, who make the world drunk as well. Behold, the two brothers have come, who once were Kanai and Balai of Braja. They who would steal the butter out of the pots of the Gopi maids. Behold, the two have come, who shatter all the rules of caste, embracing everyone as brother, even the outcast shunned by men, who lose themselves in Hari's name, making the whole world mad, who are none other than Hari himself and chant his hallowed name. Behold them, who saved from their sinful ways the ruffians Jagai and Madhai. They who cannot distinguish between a friend and an enemy. Behold the two brothers, Gaur and Nitai, who come again to save mankind." And again the master sang, "See how all Nadia is shaking under the waves of Gauranga's love." Are you seeing this beautiful scene? I mean, Thakur in ecstasy, just a divine fervor, completely lost. There's not one cell in his body reserved. He's just threw himself into the crowd, started dancing, shouting, the flowers flying, the atmosphere gathering, a storm of devotion there. And then Thakur going into deep samadhi, standing still, all eyes fixed on him as the flowers are thrown at his feet. And then he comes to and sings this beautiful song. And you can just imagine he was that. He was that message of God's love for everyone. He was experiencing that singleness of mind and heart. And for him to be singing the words, the very purpose of his existence, in that deep state of devotion, of samadhi, must have been awe-inspiring. Is awe-inspiring, actually. Still intensely beautiful. The crowd, with the master in the center, surged toward the temple of Radha Krishna. Only a small number could enter. The rest stood outside the portal and jostled with one another just to have a look at Shree Ramakrishna. In a mood of intoxication, he began to dance in the courtyard of the shrine. Every now and then his body stood transfixed in deep samadhi. Hundreds of people around him shouted the name of God. Thousands outside caught the strain and raised the cry with full-throated voices. The echo traveled over the Ganges, striking a note in the hearts of people in the boats on the holy river, and they too chanted the name of God. When the kirtan was over, Mani Sen took Shree Ramakrishna and Navadvip Goswami into a room and served them with refreshments. Afterward, Ram, M, and the other devotees were also served with the prasad. In the afternoon, the master was sitting in Mani Sen's drawing room with the devotees. Navadvip was also near him. Mani offered the carriage hire to Sri Ramakrishna. Pointing to Ram and the others, the master said, "Why should they accept it from you? They earn money." He became engaged in conversation with Navadvip. The master. Bhakti, matured, becomes bhava. Next is mahabhava, then prema, and last of all is the attainment of God. Gauranga experienced the states of mahabhava and prema. When prema is awakened, a devotee completely forgets the world. He also forgets his body, which is so dear to a man. Gauranga experienced prema. He jumped into the ocean thinking it to be the Jamuna. The ordinary jiva does not experience mahabhava or prema. He goes only as far as bhava. But Gauranga experienced all three states. Isn't that so? Navadvip. Yes, sir, that is true. The inmost state, the semi-conscious state, and the conscious state. Master. In the inmost state, he would remain in samadhi, unconscious of the outer world. In the semi-conscious state, he could only dance. In the conscious state, he chanted the name of God. Navadvip introduced his son to the master. The young man was a student of the scriptures. He saluted Sri Ramakrishna. Navadvip. He studies the scriptures at home. Previously, one hardly saw a copy of the Vedas in this country. Max Müller has translated them, so people can now read these books. Master. Too much study of the scripture does more harm than good. The important thing is to know the essence of the scripture. After that, what is the need of books? One should learn the essence and then dive deep in order to realize God. I want to really just highlight that because I feel there's a very deep truth there, because I think our common idea, especially here in this country, is jumping into knowing scripture, down to the letters and the periods. And really, most of our information about God, most of the important things that you will learn about the divine is through your practice, through your experience of sitting in the presence. God gives the best cherries, the best little pieces of fruit when you're sitting there in silence, just in a conscious awareness of presence. And they seem to just kind of pop up out of your own heart, out of the own field of your inner world. These interesting ideas, these deeper insights, these marvelous truths that are apparent and everywhere. We just don't see them because we're not looking for them, and we're kind of off in our idea of what we are. So we miss so much of this. And so really the scriptures, they're there to verify your experience and to verify what you are learning in your own practice with God, in your own time with God. And so know that it's not a study that we're involved in. It's a getting to know you that we're involved in. And it's so much better to have a living practice, to have a practice where you are with the divine and you are actively learning and discovering, because we're learning about things. The scriptures are only telling you about things that are true. It's up to you to experience them, to realize that you're experiencing them, to see them, and in the joy of that company of your beloved, to learn, to know him, and let that love increase. One should learn the essence of the scripture and then dive deep in order to realize God. The Divine Mother has revealed to me the essence of the Vedanta. It is that Brahman alone is real and the world illusory. The essence of the Gita is what you get when you repeat the word 10 times. The word becomes reversed. It is then tagi, which refers to renunciation. The essence of the Gita is, O man, renounce everything and practice spiritual discipline for the realization of God. So you get his wordplay there, Gita, 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 Gita. You do it fast enough, after time it becomes doggy, 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 and the two without that break in between. And that's the essence. Renunciation. Renunciation of what? Of things that are false. Finally to come to the knowledge this world provides no food for you. This world provides no comfort for you. This world provides no wholeness for you. That comes from inside. That comes from a knowledge of self, not a knowledge of things. And so that renunciation should be so natural to us, because certainly the truth, when you begin paying attention to it, is so obvious. How it keeps you strung along. I was just reading, where was I reading this last night? About karma. I guess it must have been in that book, You Are Here by Thich Nhat Hanh. And they were talking about how, that karma is so destructive because it leaves behind the seeds for the future. So if you go and enjoy that piece of cake, in and of itself, so what? No big deal. But just enjoying that piece of cake puts into you the memory of the pleasure of eating that piece of cake. But it doesn't put into you the memory of the upset stomach or putting on weight from eating too much cake or any of the negative stuff. It just puts those seeds of the pleasure in the mind. And if you collect more and more of those seeds, the pleasure of driving, the pleasure of eating, the pleasure of, partners, and the pleasure of travel, the pleasures of this, that, and the other, every single one of them is leaving seeds, that are going to sprout in the mind. And all it needs is a little poke from the outside, the smell of pizza, and suddenly the joy of eating pizza rises in the mind, producing a desire, and then the desire produces an action, and you go and once again eat that piece of pizza again, and the seeds are left again, and this time deeper in the soil, because it's reinforcing all of the other times that you've eaten that piece of pizza. And so this breaking that chain of karma is very difficult for us, because we have to dig up the seeds. We have to root out the seeds. That's what purifying the mind is. It's rooting out all the seeds of your past karmas, so that they are weakened, so that when they come up, they can easily be just brushed aside. And I'm finding in my life, I mean, these things take years. Or I don't know that it takes everybody years. It has taken me years to even begin this process of clearing out the mind. And I have found the most helpful thing, not so very long ago, was this reiterating the notion of not body, not mind, so that when you sit in meditation, become aware of your independence from body and independence from mind. Repeat it to yourself every now and then. Feel the body, and then remind yourself, that is not me. That has nothing to do with me. Feel the mind, feel the things in the mind, and then say to yourself, that is not me. That has nothing to do with me. Because if you can know that the body is not you, that the mind is not you, then all of these seeds of karmas can sprout as they will and will not affect you. They will not become action until you identify with them. And when you identify with them, they bring action. And that action will be your falling into that karma and then reiterating that karma over and over and over again. So the Divine Mother has revealed to me that the essence of the Vedanta, it is that Brahman alone is real, that which is within your shrine. That sense of I, that sense of I that's universal is Brahman, but that you borrow that same sense of I and make it particular, and that becomes egoism, that becomes your sense of being. So, but Brahman, the source of that I, is the only thing that's real. And so really it's wonderful when you're in meditation to make that conscious, become conscious of that. This is what's real. This is the only place that joy can be found, the only place that fulfillment can be had, the only place where life can be meaningful. It all starts here. Without this, nothing. Navadvip. But how can we persuade our mind to renounce? I'm going to come back to that sentence in a minute. How can we persuade our minds to renounce? Master, you are a Goswami. It is your duty to officiate as priest in the temple. You cannot renounce the world. Otherwise, who would look after the temple and its services? You have to renounce mentally. It is God himself who has kept you in the world to set an example to men. You may resolve in your mind 1,000 times to renounce the world, but you will not succeed. God has given you such a nature that you must perform your worldly duties. Krishna said to Arjuna, "What do you mean you will not fight? By your mere will, you cannot desist from fighting. Your very nature will make you fight." At the mere mention of Krishna and Arjuna, the master went into samadhi. In the twinkling of an eye, his body became motionless, his eyeballs transfixed, while his breathing could scarcely be noticed. At this sudden transformation, Navadvip and his son and the other devotees looked at the master in a mute wonder. This quest for renunciation, happens through discernment as one of the tools, as you're constantly watching, not going into autopilot mode in your life, but watching what's happening in your mind, watching what you're doing, seeing what the fruits of things are, will naturally bring renunciation, because Mother is not asking us to renounce things that are meaningful to us, that are actually helpful or even actually enjoyable to us. They're enjoyable to a body, they're enjoyable to a mind, but the soul writhes in pain at that time. It's because all of the attention is in the temporary, in the world, when that's there. And so there's two things. One is that constant reminding yourself, God alone is real. All of this, it's vapid. That's why I'm wanting to do this for the 10,000th time, because of the other 9,990 times did nothing but leave me hungry. Why? Because all they did was leave seeds behind. That's all they left for you. Seeds that would then provoke you to need to do those things again and again and again. That's why it's called bondage. And so we have to become aware of that. And so one of them is to realize when you hear the mind or watch in the mind, it brings up that thought of pizza, after the senses delivered the smell of it. If you are a person who's practiced and become aware of your inner world, you'll see all of that happen. You'll see where it's going long before it gets there. And you can defeat it. You can renounce it quite simply at that point because it hasn't become a thing for you. But if you don't have this sense of watchfulness developed inside, then all of that will happen in the course of time unnoticed to you. And suddenly you won't be ready, you won't be fighting at all until the desire has already formed and come into the fullness of being a desire. And to stop it at that point is very, very difficult. Very difficult. So we persuade our minds to renounce by watching closely and seeing how the inner workings are, and by constantly reminding ourselves we're not the mind. So when a thought goes through the mind, you want to make the effort to not say it's your thought. It's just a thought in a mind that you are witness to. Because in your real self, you are witnessing all the thoughts of every mind, right? And so, but to know that, you have to let go of these thoughts and this mind. And then, later on in like in Raja Yoga, it says that that's how you become part of or be aware of the universal mind, that you can you can see all minds. Not an important thing, but just to get that renunciation happening within yourself, understand the nature of the world you're living in by being carefully observant of your inner world, of how it works, and the rest will become self-apparent. It will become obvious to you. But this idea also, that God has made him this way for this task and for these things, that's true for all of us. But we don't think that way necessarily. But we also don't get down on ourselves for the difficulty of these things. It may be that mother's keeping you deluded for something. And so go to her about that. Find out the truth of it and go forward. But, you don't use that as an excuse. Oh, God made me this way. There's nothing to be done. Because if we all take that stance, if you actually believe it, that also is a path. If you actually believe it and actually surrender, not just the pleasant or quirky things about yourself, but if you actually accept everything as being the will of God, that also will get you there. So you can do it both ways. You can say, oh, God made me this way, but then you better learn to be absolutely accepting and content in the way things are, because God made it that way. And so that also is a path for getting there.
And Maharaj, I had a comment on that. I was just going to bring this up later on, but you presented it right now. So along that line of thought, I was thinking that renunciation and acceptance are the same thing. They are the same sides of the coin, or because either you renounce and say, or you say, like you said, that to me it was very clear this morning. It's like acceptance of everything, every thought, every action, every decision as being not mine, but just accepting everything.
Yes.
So in that way, the two becomes the same.
Yeah, becomes the same practice, just from a different angle. Yeah, because to accept your renunciation, to accept your own renunciation, you have to know the truth of why it's being renounced, and you have to accept that as being, this isn't good for me. This is the body. It's not me. All the same things have to be learned. It's just
or
being
that
done.
Everything is God's, whether this body is God, this bad action is God, this good action is God, this bad thought is God, this good thought. So that way there's no resistance. It's not like you're negating.
Right.
It's a much more, to me, it's much more smoother over the past few weeks or months. It's just more expanding instead of contracting.
Wonderful.
Right?
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, because see what's happening in that is also that knowledge or that separation is going on. In accepting good and bad thoughts, that means you're watching thought and are aware of good and bad thoughts, and then to assign them to God is to de-assign them to yourself. They aren't mine. So yeah, no, that's very true. That's nice insight. Is a nice insight. So there's that way, and there's probably a million more, because this is truth, and truth can be seen from any perspective you want, as long as you know that you're looking at truth. Navadvip and his son and the other devotees looked at the master in mute wonder. Regaining partial consciousness, he said to Navadvip, "Yoga and Boga." That's practice and enjoyment. You Goswamis have both. Now your only duty is to call on God and to pray to him sincerely. Oh God, I don't want the glories of your world-bewitching Maya. I want you alone. God dwells in all beings undoubtedly. That being the case, who may be called his devotee? He who dwells in God, he who has merged his mind, his life, and his innermost soul in God. The master returned to the sense plane. Referring to his samadhi, he said to Navadvip, "Some say that this state of mind is a disease. I say to them, how can one become unconscious by thinking of him who is consciousness, who has made the whole world conscious?" Mani Sen said goodbye to the invited Brahmins and Vaishnavas with suitable gifts of money. He offered 5 rupees to Shree Ramakrishna. The latter said that he could not possibly accept any money, but Mani insisted. The master then asked him in the name of his guru not to press him. Mani requested him again to accept the offering. Oof. Can you imagine? Ramakrishna says, "In the name of my guru, please don't offer that again." And he turns around and offers it again. It's not as uncommon as you might think. When we offer things to the Lord, we've got lots of our own motives for it, lots of our own motives. And, I see it a lot. Somebody brings food for the offering on the shrine, and then they want it served in a particular way, and they want it presented on this platter and not on that platter, all these strings of attachment. When you offer something to the Lord, you lay it at the feet of the Lord and you leave it there. It's what happens from that point on is not yours, because it's not yours anymore. You've offered it. And this is why I quite often tell people, when you pray for something, pray once. You've offered it. If you've truly given it to the Lord, there's no need to say it again. Just offer it and leave it there. And if you want to check in on what Mother's up to with your offering, then just go and sit silently,
Excuse me, question.
Yes. Uh-huh.
You mean if I pray for someone's health, I should just pray once?
It's not a should. These aren't rules, but the idea is, if you pray it once in faith and you mean it and you leave it at Mother's feet, why would you have to do it again? If you want it, you're welcome to. It's not wrong to do it at all. And sometimes it's proper, just for your own comfort or your own whatever. But the idea is, when you lay something before Mother's feet, leave it there.
But Swami, I'd run out of things to pray for. Like if I can only pray once, you pray for the world and the planet and peace. And if you're just praying once, then you'd have to stop praying.
Well, that might be the thing.
I'm open-minded about it, but is that kind of what you're suggesting?
Well, this depends on where you're at, Regina. It's not the same for everybody all the time. You can pray for all those things. The best prayer is "Thy will be done," which is, an interesting prayer, because God's will is always done. And so what it does is it turns your prayers into acceptance. Exactly what Bindu was mentioning earlier, that to know that the world is as it should be, everything is as it should be. Now, for our human side, that's why when someone asks me to pray for their neighbor or somebody, I'll pray, but I won't pray any particular thing. To me, the praying for somebody means in my prayer time, in my time at the shrine with the mother, I'll just hold them up in mother's attention. And that's all. I'll let mother decide what needs to be done or what needs to be fixed or what needs to happen. I'll leave that to her. It's mine to accept her will. So to pray for somebody, for me, it's just putting them in front of the Lord and silently sitting there. Mother knows all the rest of it. Mother knows all the rest of it. And you can place somebody in the light of mother as often as you want, like that. Place the world in the light of it. So in that sense, that's the same thing, but when I say pray once, it's a matter of faith. It's a matter of faith. Pray once. If you prayed in faith, what's the value of again?
I don't even understand what the point of praying once is.
Okay.
Because mother's already doing the best thing. The whole topic mystifies me. I don't want to stop the class on this topic.
No. This isn't stopping the class. These are great questions. No, it is true. If that is your true inner conviction and not just an intellectual piece of knowledge, you're absolutely right. There's no need to pray for anything ever in that sense. But we're a forgetful lot. We're a distracted lot. And so the praying frequently or praying about things at all is mostly for our benefit. It's mostly for us to stay aware and to be in the presence and to practice our acceptance and to practice our surrender and to work on that relationship with our inner beloved. So prayer serves many, many purposes, not just a request of the divine. It's entering into the relationship with the divine and bringing yourself in the state that you're in, to the Lord. And so if you find comfort in praying for someone in particular ways, by all means, do that. It's you and the beloved. It's not an instruction on a task or something. It's your relationship with the beloved, and so do it as you would like. But understand that God's will is being done, and that the scriptures say that God is everywhere present and always perfect. And so in your prayer, you should always have that in mind. Still ask what you want to ask, but say, I hear that everything is done according to your will and that you're perfect and everywhere present. I'm having trouble seeing that because I hurt for this person, because I'm seeing suffering. And so I'm praying for their release from suffering. But at the end, I give it to you, Ma. You do what's best for this person. Like that. But be focused and be present for your prayers. Know that if you've already prayed something, Mother has heard it. She's answered it. She's taken care of it. If you don't see the answer, then ask about that. If you don't feel like it's answered, then talk about that. But so all I'm really saying is it's the attitude behind it. Don't just rotely pray for things over and over and over again. Understand that if you've offered something, it's offered and Mother has seen it. That if you've asked for something, Mother has heard it. And the rest is acceptance.
Thank you. Thank you, Swami.
Yeah. The master then asked him in the name of his guru, please do not press me. Mani requested him again to accept the offering. Shree Ramakrishna asked M in a distressed voice whether he should take the money. The disciple made a vehement protest and said, no, sir, by no means. Friends of Mani Sen gave the money to Rakal, requesting him to buy some mangoes and sweets for the master. Shree Ramakrishna said to M, I have definitely said to Mani that I would not accept the money. I feel free now, but Rakal has accepted it. His is now the responsibility. So he left Rakal with that responsibility. Shree Ramakrishna, accompanied by the devotees, took a carriage to return to Dakshineshwar. They were going to pass the temple garden of Mati Sial on the way. For a long time, the master had been asking M to take him to the reservoir in the garden in order that he might teach him how to meditate on the formless God. There were tame fish in the reservoir. Nobody harmed them. Visitors threw puffed rice and other bits of food into the water, and the big fish came in swarms to eat the food. Fearlessly, the fish swam in the water and sported there joyously. Coming to the reservoir, the master said to M, "Look at the fish. Meditating on the formless God is like swimming joyfully like these fish in the ocean of bliss and consciousness." See, there's a meditation technique for the formless divine. If you don't see God as Ramakrishna or as Jesus or as Buddha, but you want that idea of God the Father or God the Mother, that's formless, absolutely formless, then your meditation isn't a focus on form. Your meditation is a focus on your being utterly surrounded and inundated by that Satchitananda, that pure love, that pure wisdom, that pure isness. And you just are constantly in your meditation, just opening layer after layer of your mind into the acceptance of the presence, into a knowing of the presence. And then as you know the presence, meaning that you've surrendered more and more of your delusion and your lack of focus, you continue to open up layer after layer in the mind. Then what sprouts up within is your joy. Your Satchitananda answers that vibration, answers that presence of this all everywhere present divine knowing, and the two unite. The two meet as such. Monday, June 25, 1883. Shree Ramakrishna was at Balaram Bose's house in Calcutta. Rakal and M were seated near him. The master was in ecstasy. He conversed with the devotees in an abstracted mood. Master, let me assure you that a man can realize his inner self through sincere prayer. All right, so there is a marvelous pointing at prayer as not just being a dialogue or a request of God, but it's actually a path to God. So through sincere prayer, let me assure you, a person can realize his inner self through sincere prayer. But to the extent that he has the desire to enjoy worldly objects, his vision of the self becomes obstructed. You see, so this inner sincere prayer is a form of prayer, but also remember your whole life, every thought and every action is a prayer. And all those prayers get all added together, and the average is taken, and that average is what you get, right? So on one hand, you might be praying for enlightenment, and on the other hand, you might be sleeping till noon. You're going to get the average of those two prayers, which means you'll feel guilty about not getting up, but you won't pray. So know that. Part of this being vigilant, being mindful, part of mindfulness, one of the benefits and important aspects of mindfulness is you become aware of the prayers that you're praying all the time. Every action that you do, everything that you say is a prayer, right? Just like everything you put in your body is an offering. So everything that goes in your ears is an offering to the divine. Everything that goes in your mouth, everything that you smell, everything you taste, everything you touch is an offering to the Lord. And you want those things to be things that are worthy of being offered to the Lord, right? So putting things that aren't helpful to love into your eyes, ears, nose, mouth, or touch may bring about, unhealthy things for you. They're not the things that should have been offered. And so become aware. This is, again, that mindfulness, that watchfulness in the mind. To the extent that you have a desire to enjoy worldly objects, your vision of the self becomes obstructed. M. Yes, sir. You always ask us to plunge into God. And just imagine what that meant to M as he had just sitting there, had just experienced watching the master in ecstasy a dozen times almost in the last 2 or 3 pages, just completely overwhelmed in divine love. So he knows what Thakur is asking of him when he says, plunge into God. And so each one of us is getting that instruction, plunge into God, plunge into the divine, let go of everything. It's unreal. Master, joyously, yes, that's it. Plunge into God, yes. Let me tell you that the realization of self is possible for all, without any exception. You should highlight that in bright red right now. You do not need another promise besides that one. You do not need another promise besides that one. Yes, that's it. Let me tell you that the realization of self is possible for all, without any exception. Without any exception. So those of you who are thinking, oh my God, I'm so bad, I've got this, if you only knew all the struggles, this, that, and the other, I can't do this. No, sorry, you lose or you win. You can realize God. There are no exceptions. Everyone. M. That is true, sir. But God is the doer. He works through different beings in different ways according to their capacity to manifest the divine. God gives to some the full spiritual consciousness, and in others he keeps in ignorance. Now listen to what Master says. Master, no, that is not so. One should pray to God with a longing heart. God certainly listens to prayer if it is sincere. There is no doubt about it. So no, God will not keep some in ignorance and give divine light to others. God will answer a sincere prayer. That's why he says that sincerity and earnestness are the one most important thing, At other times he adds the other ones too, truth and love. But, here he's very adamant. Your realization is imminent if you want it. It's yours and you can have it. Pray sincerely for it. Be earnest about your practice. It will be yours. You will have it, and you can have it before this body falls. It can be yours. A devotee. Yes, sir. There is this I consciousness in us. Therefore, we must pray. Master to M. A man should reach the Nitya, the absolute, by following the trail of the Leela, the relative. It is like reaching the roof by stairs. After realizing the absolute, he should climb down to the relative and live on that plane in the company of devotees, charging his mind with the love of God. This is my final and most mature opinion. Wow. That's amazing. So we reach the absolute through the relative, right? Through our practices, through our prayers, through our meditations, through our service, through our love, through our compassion, through our acceptance of grace, through our sincerity, right? And it's like reaching the roof by the stairs. And he's referring to that story he tells where when you get to the roof, you realize that it's made of the same materials as the stairs. So once you've reached the divine through the relative, then you realize that also the relative was as much God as the absolute. That the power of God and the absolute, immovable, unchanging God are one, that they are both there. They both, So I'll read that whole paragraph since it's his final and most mature opinion. A man should reach the Nitya, the absolute, by following the trail of the Leela, the relative, that's this world. It is like reaching the roof by the stairs. After realizing the absolute, he should climb down to the relative and live on that plane in the company of devotees, charging his mind with the love of God. This is my final and most mature opinion. God has different forms, and he sports in different ways. He sports as Ishvara, Deva, man, and the universe. In every age, he descends to the earth in human form as an incarnation to teach people love and devotion. There is the instance of Chaitanya. One can taste devotion and love of God only through his incarnations. Infinite are the ways of God's play, but what I need is love and devotion. I want only the milk. The milk comes through the udder of the cow. The incarnation is that udder. Jesus the udder. Marvelous. So God has come in all of these forms for us to teach what? Love and devotion. That's it. By teaching us love, we become devotional. We respond with devotion. Was Shree Ramakrishna hinting that he was an incarnation of God? Did he suggest that those who saw him saw God? Did he thus speak about himself when speaking of Chaitanya? So indeed, indeed, he tells it very baldly at one point. He who is Rama and he who was Krishna is now Ramakrishna sitting before you, and not in your Vedantic sense. Meaning not just in the sense that all of us are God, but in the special sense, that yes, I am that incarnation. And he's been coming in every age. That's why I have this strong idea that we shouldn't we shouldn't treat each of the incarnations as a discrete manifestation of something other and different from the rest. That we should understand that all of these incarnations are an incarnation, the same self incarnating in each blessed form, Rama, Krishna, Chaitanya, Jesus. That in all of these forms, it is the same person, and the lesson has been consistent, though changed in perhaps in emphasis and in language and mythology to present the people and place of the time, but that it's a whole, and we can benefit from all of the incarnations. And we can look at Ramakrishna and see Jesus in Ramakrishna. We can see Buddha in Ramakrishna. We can see Chaitanya in Ramakrishna. We can see Rama in Ramakrishna, right? And so you are sitting before Jesus when you sit in the shrine. You're sitting before Rama. To know this, to have faith in this, and to grow in this. It will spread open your mind and your heart into a wonderful way. All right. That looks like a good place to stop for the evening.